Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Sorry about the background, that it's super messy today. Anyway, in a lot of cases involving serial killers, it seems like the masterminds have some kind of personality disorders. It's like they were born without empathy or sympathy. Many of them have this weird ability to manipulate people's mind. So today, I want to talk about this female mastermind in a serial killing case. But here's the thing, she's already been executed, so we don't have much information about her. What we do know is that she had this crazy power to make people obsessed with her. Like, they would actually go and kill for her. And she did all this while living up with wealthy folks and enjoying a life of luxury. Is she hot? Well, I guess she's attractive, but if you compare her to other famous Chinese female celebrities of that time, she's not exactly drop-dead gorgeous. Also, we don't have a lot of details about her background or how she became the person she was. Most of the articles and stuff out there just give us a fuzzy idea of who she was based on other people's perspectives. What's the story behind all of this? Let me explain it to you slowly. On the morning of the 29th of June 1995, in Dongguan City, there was this old farmer dude just doing his usual thing, right? Hauling his stuff through those veggie fields. Out of nowhere, the old pal spots this big old bag just chilling right smack in the middle of the path. And the bag was stuffed to the brim and smelled like straight up garbage. Now, even though the old pal's eyesight wasn't the best, he could still make out something inside the bag. It was like white, oval-shaped something. It could be someone left out dead pigs again. The old pal almost rolled at this bag, thinking it was another trash he had stumbled upon. As the farmers in the area started getting into this pig farming, but due to inexperience and everything, there were a lot of pigs kicking the bucket due to diseases. And they couldn't sell these sickly pigs, right? So it was a real pain to get rid of it. So they just sneakily dumped these pigs in those bushes or some random veggie fields. The old pal, being old and weak, couldn't deal with such things, right? It's not like he had strength to lift up the bag of pigs all by himself. So he was just stepping over the bag and keeping going. However, as he stepped over the wooden bag, he suddenly felt that something was off. There was a small gap in the bag that exposed its contents. He caught a glimpse of a patch of skin inside of that bag. The old pal had raised and killed pigs in his younger days and was very familiar with the animal. This oval-shaped mass did look like a pig, though its skin was super smooth, which was in complete contrast of the rough skin of a pig. In a flash, curiosity got the best of him. He decided to take a closer look. The old pal put his stuff, opened the bag, and carefully checked what was inside. There was this piece of meat that was full of obvious human hair. His brain hadn't fully processed with the sheer tear yet. The hairs on the back of his neck were already standing on end. The old pal, scared out of his wits, fell backwards, almost passing out. He hurriedly crawled away and ran to report it to the police in no time. When the police arrived, they roughly examined the bag at first, but decided already it wasn't a pig. And even they, police officers, dared to take a closer look and immediately called their forensic teams. Meanwhile, they requested additional backup to search the area. So right after that, the cops found another bag, but this one was way bigger than the one the old pal found before. And guess what? Inside that big bag was a dead woman's body. At the same time, the forensic team confirmed that the smaller bag was full of human pieces. Well, everyone should expect that, right? They were all crumbled and packed in the bag. According to the autopsy, it's pretty clear that the victims were all rich folks. Why would I say that? The dismembered pieces, even though it was missing its head and limbs, looked like it had a good build. These weren't just the muscles of a laborer, but more like the result of hitting the gym. Thin muscles versus the thick muscles. It seems like the deceased lived a crucial life and spent quite a bit on fitness. As for the lady's dead body, she was definitely a wealthy woman as well. She was probably in her 30s, looked average, had a curvy figure, and had super smooth and fair skin. Her hands were delicate and didn't have any rough patches. It seems like she didn't do any physical labor or even household chores. That only happens to rich people, right? They don't need to do basically anything by themselves. No signs of sexual assault on her either, so it doesn't seem like a case of sexual violence. Since the bodies were found near each other, anyone would roughly assume that they were there together, right? Then why one bag was full of human pieces but the other contained a whole body piece? Was it the killer didn't have time to match both of the bodies, or was there other motive behind this? Well, the police couldn't figure it out right there, right then. So obviously, they'd just focus on the investigation of the female victim, the one with the complete body. They compared her with missing persons reports, but no result. Then they'd have to take pictures of her to ask around the neighbors where the body was found. But you should expect nothing as well while holding a photo of a lifeless face to ask around. They look very different than when they were alive. So when the detectives were feeling pretty lost, the forensic team had some information that will help them narrow down their investigation. The forensic examiner stumbled upon something crazy. The lady victim had some funky stuff going on with her big toes. And here's the scoop. The forensic team did some major digging and figured out that it wasn't some kind of disability or change that happened after she kicked the bucket. Nope. Turns out it was probably because she rocked high heels back in the day very often. So at first glance, this discovery might not seem like a big deal, but actually had a lot of meaning. The crime went down in the 90s, and the person who got messed with was pushing 40 back then, which means she should have been a teenager in the 60s or 70s, right? It's common knowledge that mainland China during the 1960s and 1970s was quite different. High heel shoes were associated with capitalism, and wearing them might lead to public condemnation. So it seems pretty clear that this woman probably wasn't from mainland China. As it happened in Dongguan City, you can see from the map that how close it is to Hong Kong. So there were loads of folks from Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau, Singapore, and other places who came to this Dongguan City for business. So this wasn't anything out of the ordinary in this city. And since the victim might not have been a mainland Chinese, well, that changes everything. It goes from a domestic case to an international one. But like I said, the case became even more significant, though the police got to narrow it down and started to visit these foreign companies that were in this Dongguan City. And this time, their lucks finally came. So there's this Hong Kong businessman named Mr. Chen Jia-en, who went missing. Some pretty weird stuff happened before he disappeared. According to his wife in Hong Kong, 2 days before he vanished, which was on the evening of the 27th of June, he left the factory by car, saying he was gonna go grab some dinner and would be back for a meeting at around 9 p.m. Wow, they work at 9 p.m. But anyway, he didn't show up that night. Chen Jia-en's wife mentioned that her husband was quite a player and had multiple side chicks in Dongguan, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou, basically the cities that are geographically close to Hong Kong. When he didn't come back that evening as he promised, The employees at the factory didn't find that too strange, thinking he might have crashed at one of his side chicks' places, right? However, in the early hours of the next day, around 1 a.m., Mr. Chen's wife got a call from her husband. In the call, Mr. Chen sounded pretty scared and explained that he urgently needed 800,000 Chinese yuan for a business deal and asked his wife to hustle and take the money to this specific hotel in Shenzhen and give it to a tanned woman. During the call, Mr. Chen kept stressing that the money had to be delivered on time without any delays. Mr. Chen's wife was just a homemaker, who didn't have much experience with these kinds of situations, and she was super scared and panicked. Didn't know what to do, she quickly reached out to her dad, who happened to be Mr. Chen's senior partner. Mr. Chen's father-in-law immediately got in touch with the female business partner, Miss Chen Jiewen, to figure out what to do. Chen Jiewen, also from Hong Kong, had been doing business since she was a teenager, and even though she was in her early 30s, she had plenty of life experience and was able to stay cool under pressure. The father-in-law was old and stuff, thinking he didn't know mainland China as well as this lady, Chen Jiewen. So he naturally asked for help. Chen Jiewen thought that Mr. Chen had probably been kidnapped, but she wasn't sure if the kidnappers were from mainland China or Hong Kong. At that time, there were criminal gangs in Hong Kong that were experts in kidnapping rich people. Chen Jiewen figured it was probably that they were the ones behind this abduction. The gangs in Hong Kong usually just wanted money and didn't want to harm the captives. They would let the victim go once they got the ransom. However, reporting the incident to the authorities could cause some problems, or let's just say she thought it worsened the situation. Chen Jiewen believed it would be better to deal with it without getting the police involved, even if that meant losing some money. Mr. Chen could come back safely. Well, the mentality back then was quite different than nowadays. In the 90s, there were a bunch of rich people getting kidnapped in Hong Kong left and right. It happened because there was a large difference between the wealthy and those who were not as wealthy, which led to the abductions by gangs. The police were not very effective. People held grudges against each other, and media couldn't stop discussing it. These kidnappings really freaked out everyone in Hong Kong for like a decade. It wasn't until the Hong Kong came back to China and a series of treatments were released to calm down the gangs, the rich people finally stopped getting harmed. So I'm going to tell you some stories that went down during that crazy time in the future. By looking at relevant cases, we can get a glimpse of what life was like back then. But I won't bore you with a long intro about Hong Kong of that period today. It's just a quick heads up about why these folks decided to cough up some cash instead of calling the cops. Anyway, let's go back to the story. Mrs. Chen was really scared, just couldn't hold back her tears. Mr. Chen's father-in-law was pretty old, so Chen Jiewen, a super brave and clever businesswoman, totally set up and offered to take this 800,000 Chinese yuan ransom to Shenzhen. On the afternoon of the 28th, Adam, the Chen's family's driver, drove Chen Jiewen and this ransom in cold hard cash to the Shenzhen hotel. And wouldn't you know it, just like Mr. Chen said, a tanned lady was there already, waiting for them. And not long after they met, Chen Jiewen also vanished into thin air, along with this 800,000 Chinese yuan cash. So based on what Mrs. Chen had told, it seems pretty likely that the two people who kicked the bucket were her husband and Chen Jiewen. So Mrs. Chen went all the way to Dongguan City to check out the bodies. The male one didn't have a head or limbs, but Mrs. Chen didn't have any doubts. She took a look at the chest hair and at the stuff and confirmed right away that it was indeed her husband. On the meantime, the driver who took Chen Jiewen to that hotel in Shenzhen, Adam, recognized the female body was Chen Jiewen as well. But with the identifications, the case was still super complicated. Mr. Chen was this really smart businessman with connections all over the place, from Hong Kong to mainland China. He had a lot of friends and enemies in the business world, so it's possible that someone had a grudge against him and hired a hitman. Besides his business stuff, Mr. Chen was also known for being quite the ladies' man, keeping a bunch of mistresses. So they couldn't really rule out if it was due to jealousy or a crime of passion. Plus, being a well-known Hong Kong businessman, it was a prime target for those looking to make a quick butt of him. That's a ton of possibilities. And this whole social network thing was super sophisticated, so it's tough for the police to make any progress. The special investigation team suddenly had a light bulb moment and thought of a super important person, Mr. Chen's driver, Adam. So when Adam was driving Chen Jiewen to the hotel and spotted the lady with the tanned skin meeting her, was he able to identify the woman as well since he saw her? But Adam was thinking that maybe the murder and kidnapping were planned by some criminal gangs from Hong Kong. This thought really freaked him out so much that he was like, nope, I don't want my salary anymore. Just don't get me involved with the mafia. So after identifying the body, he left Chen's family, hiding himself in Hong Kong. Dongguan police got in touch with the Hong Kong police to ask for help in finding him. After a long search, they finally managed to reach him. At first, Adam didn't want to cooperate, but after the Hong Kong police kept persuading and reassuring, he finally spilled the beans. He had seen this tanned woman somewhere before. It seemed like she used to be one of Mr. Chen's mistresses, but he couldn't remember her name. The police immediately placed greater emphasis on investigating Mr. Chen's mistresses. But he had a large number of these mistresses. That's in fact, and he had countless one-night stands too. Most of these women went from around there, they used fake names, and they were always moving around different cities. With their limited resources, the police couldn't investigate all of them in a short amount of time, so the case hit another dead end. Well, like I mentioned, this case became an international matter, so the police were on a mission to crack it ASAP. Just when it seemed like all hopes were gone, the forensic team made another big breakthrough. The discovery was about the reason why the victims died. In the case of Chen Jiewen, since her body was intact, it was easy to figure out her cause of death. She was suffocated to death. But that alone didn't really help much, right? A more detailed autopsy showed that Chen Jiewen got hit in the head with a heavy thing, which caused serious damage to her brainstem and eventually led to her suffocation. Getting hit with something heavy wasn't totally unexpected, but what happened next was quite surprising. So after looking real closely, the forensic experts were totally blown away to find out that Chen Jiewen got knocked out with just one punch to the head. There weren't any weapons used or anything, just bare fist. Some of the veteran detectives had over 30 years of experience in law enforcement and had investigated hundreds of murder cases, but they had never seen a case where someone got killed with just one punch. Crazy, right? Upon further analysis of Mr. Chen's torso, it was evident that this robust man had also been killed with a single punch to the head as well. The fact that the murderer was able to kill a muscular guy like Mr. Chen with a single punch was quite perplexing. Normal people could barely kill anything with just one punch, let alone killing anyone with it, right? The police figured that someone with such proficiency in martial arts couldn't be just an ordinary person. They must have been a martial arts expert. So here's the deal. The fact that they didn't use a weapon shows that the murderer is super confident in their combat skills. This could mean that they are a big shot in the martial arts community. So thanks to the really smart work of the forensics, this lead turned out to be totally accurate. And let me tell you, with the lead, the case made some serious progress, finally. Of course, I mean, it wasn't really that surprising because seriously, how many martial arts pros could there possibly be in Guangdong province? The police quickly launched an investigation into which of these Mr. Ten's mistresses had a martial arts expert close to them, and they soon made a major discovery. So there's this dude, Mr. Lu. He's a businessman and he's like really tight with Mr. Chen. So this Mr. Lu went and told police that there was this woman named Shao Miao Miao who had been one of Chen's mistresses. And in July 1994, Chen was totally bankrolling Shao Miao Miao with a monthly allowance of 6,000 Chinese yuan. That's a pretty hefty sum, considering that the average worker's monthly salary back then was just about a few hundred Chinese yuan. And he even rented a super fancy apartment for her. However, a couple of months later, Mr. Chen found out that Shao Miao Miao was secretly seeing this famous martial arts pro. He got super mad and cut off his financial support and kicked her out of his life. The cops took a stoke with this new lead and immediately started looking into Shao Miao Miao and this alleged martial arts expert. Then they quickly figured out who the suspect was. Adam, the driver, sent Chen Jiewen to the Shenzhen hotel, saw a photo from Mr. Liu's birthday bash and recognized the tanned lady who took Chen Jiewen as Shao Miao Miao. But like, who was this Shao Miao Miao? And where could she be found? Nobody had any information about her except that Mr. Lu suggested she might be from Lanzhou City, Gansu province, which is like far north of China, and that she had worked as a hostess in a Shenzhen nightclub at some point. The police had their ups and downs during the investigation and were once again totally bummed out. You know, in the past, there was no digital records of people, and police couldn't just locate anyone right away from different provinces across China. China was just too big for them to search like that. However, their luck took another turn for the better. The security peeps of the fancy apartment in Shenzhen, the one Mr. Chen rented for Shao Miao Miao once, gave a super important tip about this martial arts expert dude. They spilled beans that this martial arts whiz, who was all buff and tall, often visited this place rocking a police uniform just to see Shao Miao Miao. A police uniform. So here's what went down. It was past midnight and this martial arts expert dude, dressed up like a cop, tried to get into the building. But the security guard at the time was like, nah, you can't pass. And then they started an argument. The martial arts expert got all cocky and was like, dude, I'm with the Shenzhen Police Academy. Are you seriously gonna stop me, just a security guard? And the security guard hit him back with, yeah, so what if you're a cop? Without searching warrants and not being a resident, you can just come in or go out after midnight, my man. Things were getting pretty intense and it seemed like they were about to throw down for real. The security guard who confronted him was actually recently retired from this armed police, and he thought he knew his way around a fight, thinking kinda like he was unbeatable. Well, you know, if the opponent was just an ordinary person. So he raised his police baton as a threat and was like, if you don't quit your nonsense, don't come crying to me when I handle you. But what happened next was totally unexpected. In the blink of an eye, the martial arts expert pulled off an epic flying kick, sending the security guard's police baton flying more than 10 meters away. The security guard remembered that the kick was crazy fast and accurate with a ton of power, just like Bruce Lee. Even though he had been with the armed police for a long time and had seen many comrades with crazy combat skills, he had never witnessed such amazing martial artistry before. The security guard got scared and decided not to get involved, letting the martial arts expert got into the building. Anyway, anyone would back off as his kicks looked pretty deadly. However, the security guard on the flip side mentioned that this guy was pretty cool. They bumped into each other a few more times later on, and the martial arts expert didn't dwell on the previous incident. He actually even gave the security guard a smoke and said, "It was just a mix-up. Well, we're both adults, no need to be petty, right?" Upon finding out that the security guard was a retired member of the armed police and had some knowledge of martial arts, this martial arts expert was even more friendly. It was like, "Dude, I can tell you've had some legit training. I'm a martial arts instructor myself. If you're down, you could totally swing by and teach a few classes at my place. I would take care of you. No worries." However, shortly after this, the martial arts pro vanished and the security guard never saw him again. The security guard recorded still was laid back, spoke and acted kindly, and didn't seem like a killer to him. With the security guard's story, saying that he was a martial arts pro from the Shenzhen Police Academy, cops had a big clue. Didn't take much time for them to locate this person in the academic's records. When they checked out his file, the detectives were shocked. They never imagined it would be him. Indeed, it was the renowned Chinese kickboxing champion, Qiao Li Fu. In his prime, Qiao Li Fu had a formidable reputation and was regarded as one of the most skilled kickboxer practitioners in the country. Qiao Li Fu, who was born in 1964 in Dalian, Liaoning province, the northeastern part of China, was around 30 years old at the time. He started learning martial arts when he was about 16 or 17, being taught by a martial arts instructor at the Liaoning Provincial Police Special School. His coach had high hopes for him, seeing Qiao Li Fu as naturally talented for martial arts because of his strong body and quick reflexes. After a few years of training, Qiao Li Fu became the champion of the youth for a combat tournament in his hometown. Afterwards, he won the provincial kickboxing championship and the national kickboxing 70-kilogram championship. According to his training buddies, Qiao Li Fu's success was closely connected to his childhood and family background. His father had a meek personality and a physical disability, leading the family to often be bullied. People are not friendly when they were financially not well off, I guess, back in the days. When Qiao Li Fu was 10 years old, his mother couldn't endure the humiliation and committed suicide by hanging herself. This traumatic experience led Qiao Li Fu to make a vow. He would train hard in martial arts and never let anyone bully him again. He possessed a strong will, extraordinary dedication, and a brave, unyielding nature. To build physical strength, he would wake up at 3 a.m. every morning and run a distance of approximately 10 kilometers, regardless of wind or rain, and continued his whatever trainings afterwards. Although I think the method he used is somewhat questionable for bodybuilders, he managed to succeed. I bet his schedules and nutritious routines were very different than the ordinaries. Later on, Qiao Li Fu went on to get more training at another sports institute, winning several national kickboxing championships and one world championship in a row. He beat almost all his opponents, becoming quite famous in the martial arts community. According to his coaches, the only person who could compete with Qiao Li Fu at the weight level was Du Zhenggao from Beijing. Du Zhenggao was amazing at throws, while Qiao Li Fu was known for his clever and fierce-like techniques. They would often face off in the finals, with each of them having their fair share of wins. Du Zhenggao was a big shot in the martial arts world. He comes from the same martial arts family as the martial arts superstar Jet Li, and he rocked it when it comes to combat skills. He had a major presence in the martial arts world for a whopping 20 years, winning the national 75-kilogram kickboxing championship, a cool 5 times, and the national military and police combat championship 5 times. He even made history by knocking his opponent out of the ring in just 2 minutes and 6 seconds. Du Zhenggao later became a teacher and head of the research department at the Chinese Armed Police Force Academy, where he taught combat skills for a solid 18 years and trained over 3,000 special forces personnel. He even published 25 textbooks on martial arts. I think I can tell you the name of one of his publishers, like this, the Chinese Military Combative Assault Manual, the Chinese edition, which was published in 2012. So now you know how professional is this Du Zhenggao, and on him was counted as Qiao Li Fu's only opponent. During a time period, there was this saying, Muay Thai dominates kickboxing, as Muay Thai combat allows elbows and knees, which makes it more brutal. But even these tight fighters in the same weight class as Qiao Li Fu were too scared to challenge him. The Shenzhen Police Academy really went all out to get Qiao Li Fu on board as their martial arts instructor. Well, they paid him much higher than other coaches. The coaches at the academy held him in high regard, thinking he was a true master of both boxing and kicking. Standing at over 1.8 meters tall, which is about 6 feet, Qiao Li Fu once bragged that he could knock out an average person with just one punch. But his real superpower was his kicking technique. His leg was lightning fast, and he had some crazy strength. During training, he once kicked a sandbag weighing 150 kilograms several meters up in the air. I mean, your average person wouldn't stand a chance against one of his kicks, right? His colleagues thought Qiao Li Fu was a really nice guy with a big heart. Since being the police academy instructors didn't really make much money, unlike Qiao Li Fu, well, he got extra pay for being one of those. Qiao Li Fu would often treat his colleagues to meals and drinks, always insisting on paying for everything. So whenever he had meals with others, he never allowed anyone else to pay. At the police academy, Qiao Li Fu was always humble and never caused any problems. The academy's leadership had a good impression of him as well. However, some of his buddies thought that while Qiao Li Fu had crazy martial arts skills, he wasn't the most nimble and wasn't thinking much at all in most situations. Qiao Li Fu made a ton of cash from this Shenzhen Police Academy and also taught martial arts classes on the side. Rich folks in Shenzhen, knowing he was the top-notch expert, swarmed to his classes. His martial arts school made a bank with over 100 grand a month, and he even dropped a cool $1,000,000 to snag a piece of land. Despite being pretty loaded, Qiao Li Fu cared a lot about his rep and buddies, which almost got him kicked out of the police academy once. He had this buddy who owned a dance club that would get hustled by a bunch of thugs all the time, so he asked Qiao Li Fu for help. Back then, everyone knew that running a dance club was often linked to some shady dealings, but Qiao Li Fu, a cop, shockingly decided to get in on the action. As a result, the bigwigs at the academy tore into Qiao Li Fu for getting mixed up in this mess. Behind all the applause he had received, there were some rumors whispered about Qiao Li Fu. Some of his colleagues gossiped behind his back that he was totally being controlled by a chick, which was not his partner. Qiao Li Fu had a wife and a daughter in Shenzhen. His wife was a stunning 26-year-old lady, worked as a kindergarten teacher and was so gentle. I mean, with such an amazing wife, you'd think Qiao Li Fu would be happily married, right? But nope, he had a thing going on with this other woman. She had a relatively tanner skin, with a bit on the heavier side, and wasn't exactly a head-turner like his own wife. But she somehow had Qiao Li Fu under her spell. Looking back at those times, one of Qiao Li Fu's colleagues recalled. So Qiao Li Fu met this lady at a nightclub. She was kind of short and chubby, had rough manners, and seemed pretty intense. I wasn't really a fan of her, to be honest. But Qiao Li Fu, man, he hung on to her every word, cherished her, and seemed totally head over heels. I pulled Qiao Li Fu aside and asked him how he could let this nightclub hostess boss him around. And you know what? He said, she treated him so damn well, with genuine affection. I mean, come on, how come a nightclub hostess be genuinely affectionate, right? But I kept that thought to myself, didn't want to rain on Qiao Li Fu's parade. So the police started checking out Shao Miao Miao and Qiao Li Fu right away, and bingo. They found out that these two had been up to no good since before the whole dismember thing happened. On the 26th of May, Qiao Li Fu, along with two of his buddies, kidnapped this lady boss at this pub where Shao Miao Miao worked. The four of them first swept over 300,000 Chinese yuan worth of her stuff and then went ahead and roughed it up real bad. Qiao Li Fu said that this lady boss had been mean to his girlfriend Shao Miao Miao. So if she wanted to save her life, she needed to give them 200,000 Chinese yuan. Well, it wasn't a choice, was it? That lady had to go to the bank and get cash under their watch. One of Qiao Li Fu's buddies who went with her to the bank was a tough martial artist, but not the brightest bulb. While they were at the bank, the lady boss cleverly asked for help from the bank staff in Cantonese. The cops were alerted and quickly showed up at the bank, where they nabbed that dude who escorted this lady boss to the bank. Apparently, that dude didn't understand Cantonese despite they spent much time in Shenzhen. Qiao Li Fu and Shao Miao Miao, realizing that their plan had been busted, made a run for it. So they got slapped with the crime of kidnapping and extortion, which, according to the laws back then, meant they were looking at spending a good number of years behind bars at the very least. Qiao Li Fu and his desire to support his girlfriend, who not only gave up his stable job at the police academy and a monthly income of over 10,000 Chinese yuan as the martial arts institution owner, but also ended up on the run. The police thought despite Qiao Li Fu made a lot of money, but spent it all, and didn't save much. Now with the three of them needing money urgently to escape, they kidnapped and killed Shao Miao Miao's ex-sugar daddy, Mr. Chen, and also silenced Chen Jiewen, who was the most innocent figure in this story. She got killed only because she saw and handed over the money to Shao Miao Miao. The police checked their whereabouts and issued a nationwide search for them. On the 5th of July, investigators set off in 5 directions, traveling to the hometowns of these 3 suspects as well as other potential hiding places in the capital cities of their respective provinces. So the investigator who went to Lanzhou City found out that Shao Miao Miao had actually come back home at some point and might have rented a place there. So they monitored her family's telecommunications, aka phones and landlines at the time. They were pretty happy to discover through phone surveillance that Shao Miao Miao had indeed returned to Lanzhou City. She had planned to go furniture shopping with her uncle on the 8th of July. While Shao Miao Miao was on her way to the furniture store, the cops nabbed her and discovered she had over 40,000 Hong Kong dollars and over 30,000 Chinese yuan cash on her. After Shao Miao Miao got busted, she was all like, "No, it wasn't me, not me." She denied any involvement and claimed she didn't know anything about Qiao Li Fu. The cops thought that Qiao Li Fu was head over heels for Shao Miao Miao and would do anything to be on the run with her. So it's pretty unlikely that he would run to anywhere else on his own, right? The cops had a hunch that Qiao Li Fu was probably holed up in Shao Miao Miao's rented place. So on the afternoon of the 8th, the police came up with a plan to catch Qiao Li Fu. Well, it was approximately the same time that they had Shao Miao Miao in hand. You see, Qiao Li Fu might be good at martial arts, but he's just a person. It's not like he's some superhero who can dodge bullets or anything. Taking him out wouldn't be too hard, but getting him alive could be a bit trickier. To bust Qiao Li Fu, the police were like, "Yo, let's send 8 officers to take him down." Well, they got to pick these super fit and strong officers specifically for this mission. Qiao Li Fu's former police academy buddies were all warning, like, "Dude, Qiao Li Fu's leg skills are no joke. Be hella careful. One kick from him could be the end." Man. The cops totally surrounded this rental place. Like there were 8 officers armed to the teeth right up front, and then there were a bunch more officers making a circle around this place. Qiao Li Fu was trapped, and he didn't know it. As he had downed a bunch of booze at lunch, he was still snoozing, hearing no movement inside the place. Officers decided not to wait any longer and initiated a raid. The strongest officer among them delivered a powerful kick to the door, but the wooden door proved quite sturdy, and it did not give way. And for the second kick, it gave enough time for Qiao Li Fu to be jolted awake. This guy was a martial arts champ, so he acted super fast and flipped into the living room. By then, the 8 officers had already stormed in. Despite being all groggy from the alcohol, Qiao Li Fu wasted no time in giving a solid kick towards the officers that were right next to him. Well, these 2 officers were some of the most skilled officers in the whole police force, and boy, did they swiftly dodge to either side. Normally, it would have been hard to dodge a kick from Qiao Li Fu, but because he was drunk, his reflexes were slower and he totally missed his mark, which was rare and lucky for the police officers. Just 2 seconds later, the other officers jumped in along with the 2 got kicked, and all of them together took down Qiao Li Fu. Years later, one of these officers recalled, quoted, "I had to use my shoulder to wedge his belly, and I grabbed onto his legs with both hands. I literally put all my body weight against him, trying to stop him." Even though Qiao Li Fu was pinned to the floor, he wasn't about to give up. He fought with all the officers who jumped on him. There were so many officers, though, they couldn't immediately take control over him. Seeing what was happening, one officer put all his strength into it and whacked Qiao Li Fu on the head with the butt of his gun. Qiao Li Fu was quick to react. He moved his head to avoid the hit. Instead, the gun butt hit another officer in the mouth and blood started spewing out. The poor guy lost 3 teeth. The other cops at the door, seeing things were getting out of control, bushed in and like a bunch of human brakes jumped on top of Qiao Li Fu, pinning him down. Even someone with a world championship would have a hard time dealing with many chained armed police all at once, right? After a tough fight and 10 minutes of non-stop exertion, they finally managed to tightly tied up Qiao Li Fu's hands and feet just like carrying a firewood, and put him in the police car that was waiting outside. So on the evening of that very day that both Qiao Li Fu and Shao Miao Miao were caught, police gathered a badass team of officers and rushed to Lanzhou overnight. Their mission? To interrogate Qiao Li Fu and Shao Miao Miao, who had been apprehended. Qiao Li Fu, who's known for being pretty upfront, wasted no time in owning up to his crimes. He was like, look, there's really nothing else to say. Ask me anything. I will answer. But Shao Miao Miao, the cunning one, didn't confess a word. Nope, instead she pointed fingers at Qiao Li Fu and put all the blame on him. She said she was just helping out and that Qiao Li Fu was the mastermind behind the whole planning and murder thing. When the seasoned detectives saw Shao Miao Miao's cunning and stubborn behavior, they couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for Qiao Li Fu. It was evident that he was no match to this woman who had manipulated him. Shao Miao Miao was a cool kid from Lanzhou City, the only child in her family. Her family wasn't doing bad financially, and she had a good education, which should have helped her find a job and live a chill life, right? But since she was young, Shao Miao Miao was rebellious, with a strong and feisty personality. Instead of looking for a job after finishing school, she just spent a lot of time at other sports in Lanzhou City. Then she bounced to Shenzhen to work as a hostess. Back then, most women in that line of work were from poor rural backgrounds with limited education. So Shao Miao Miao really stood out. She was all about getting what she wanted and being in control. Even when she was working as a hostess, she never shied away from a fight. First, she got involved with the rich dudes like Mr. Chen just for the money. Then she started dating Qiao Li Fu, a strong but simple guy, to have someone to protect her. Qiao Li Fu admitted that he had no issue with Mr. Chen or the lady manager. He didn't even know them, to be honest. But Shao Miao Miao claimed that the lady manager was treating her badly, which made Qiao Li Fu confront her. And that's how the whole kidnapping thing started. Following the abduction, Shao Miao Miao was like, why don't we just kidnap Mr. Chen, get some ransom, and then disappear off the grid? Qiao Li Fu wasn't really feeling her idea, but then she started crying and going on about how Mr. Chen treated her like garbage. And when this Mr. Chen was with her, she said he was full-on abusive and humiliated her so badly that she felt like she was being captive and dehumanized to a point to be his sex slave. All her words. Well, Qiao Li Fu, for some reason, was incredibly into her, as I said, right? That description of Mr. Chen from her mouth really ticked off Qiao Li Fu, so he was like, right, let's go get him. After the kidnapping of Mr. Chen, Shao Miao Miao brought this ransom delivery person, Chen Jiewen, to rent a place of theirs in Shenzhen. Qiao Li Fu, seeing that they had money, suggested that they should just release both individuals, right? Keep their promise. However, Shao Miao Miao was not satisfied and insisted on killing Mr. Chen as an act of revenge for past mistreatment. Qiao Li Fu was head over heels, though he wasn't too sure of killing people, right? Well, normal people wouldn't do that. But Shao Miao Miao knew her way around him. She just convinced him to give Mr. Chen a deadly blow to the back of his head with a single punch and killed him. Considering Qiao Li Fu's fighting skills, to kill someone with a simple punch wasn't really that hard. In fact, while it is rare, there have been cases of mixed martial arts fighters dying in the ring due to issues with referees, rules, health, and so on. In some of those situations, boxers were also struck fatally on the back of the head by the opponents, even with properly wearing boxing gloves. So the idea of someone being killed by a punch is not as challenging as it may seem to us ordinary people. It might be difficult to fathom for us, but for professionally trained individuals, it may not be as far-fetched. Not stopping there, Shao Miao Miao, still unsatisfied, decided to cut off Mr. Chen's limbs and head, claiming it was to prevent the police from identifying him. Witnessing this gruesome scene, Chen Jiewen was terrified and fainted. Shao Miao Miao insisted that Chen Jiewen should be offed too. Qiao Li Fu was very reluctant about this, saying, "We don't even know this woman, and we have no grievances. Why escalate things to this level? Shao Miao Miao was like, dude, seriously? You're huge, but you're talking nonsense. This lady literally just saw us killing someone. She can totally identify us to the police. Feeling all trapped and stuff, Qiao Li Fu gave Chen Jiewen another fatal blow to the head, taking her out too. Shao Miao Miao figured since Chen Jiewen had rarely been active around the mainland China, so no one could possibly know who she was. Well, that's what she thought. But then you could tell how limited these two were thinking in general. So with the idea, they didn't bother to chop her up. That's why Chen Jiewen's body stayed intact. During their escape, Shao Miao Miao thought it would be a good idea to pull off a heist by stealing a car for their plans. Shao Miao Miao approached a professional driver from a company and tricked him into draining her by deceiving him that it was a one-off yet juicy offer. You know, bring your car to pick up someone for us behind your company so you will receive this big-ass payment directly. To you, this person, not company. Driver didn't think much and followed Shao Miao Miao to her place, where Qiao Li Fu beat him to death. Later that night, Qiao Li Fu and his crew drove to the Yellow River and got rid of the body by tossing it in the river. The driver's body was never discovered by the police. Well, you know, the Yellow River in China in some area is like super crazy. It can be really fierce, just sweeping people away. And it's like not even rare at all for the bodies to never be found again. So it's pretty clear that Shao Miao Miao was the brains behind this whole crime spree, while Qiao Li Fu was mostly in charge of doing the actual killing. What Qiao Li Fu did managed to kill 3 people all on his own, and it was pretty obvious that he was headed for a pretty terrible fate too. Investigators were all puzzled about how a young woman like Shao Miao Miao in her early 20s could be so ruthless and vengeful. But then they thought they had found out part of the reason. Shao Miao Miao admitted to the police that she had given her mom over 190,000 worth of Hong Kong dollars, along with a stash of stolen stuff like a diamond ring and some gold jewelry. Her mom had been hiding all these things. When the police went to her mother's place to look for the stolen items, her mother totally lost it, even throwing herself on the floor and refusing to cooperate at all. She kept saying that this was her daughter's hard-earned money from her job. You know, you can't just take it from me. It was only when the police issued a search warrant and forcefully took away the stolen items that she finally let him go. So the local cops who were part of the investigation spilled the beans that her mother had a reputation for being a wild one, causing all sorts of trouble locally. Apparently, the mother would get into fights and arguments every few days, which made the neighbors steer clear of her. At this point, the police realized that apple hadn't fallen far from the tree. On the 24th of November, the Dongguan City Intermediate People's Court, well, that's where the dismembered bodies were found, had this public event where they announced the verdict and carried out the punishment for the case. They caught these criminals who were involved in kidnapping, blackmailing, and murder in Dongguan City. Qiao Li Fu, Shao Miao Miao, and 4 other bad guys were given the death penalty and were executed by a firing square right there. It wasn't until a few days before the execution that the large and simple thinking Qiao Li Fu finally realized the gravity of his actions. According to some of his inmates, one night Qiao Li Fu just burst into tears and was like, I did these crimes because she totally seduced me. My family used to be so chill and my daughter had just started kindergarten. Why the heck did I do this whole thing? It's just so messed up. Indeed. Why? Why would someone like him would fall so badly for Shao Miao Miao? What do you think? Okay, so today's case ends here, and I will see you in my next one.